This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai-iced coffee-flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
This episode is brought to you by Nerds Gummy Clusters, the sweet treat that always elevates the vibe. With a sweet gummy surrounded with tangy, crunchy nerds, every bite of Nerds Gummy Clusters brings you a whole new world of flavor. Whether it's game night, on the way to a concert, or kicking back with your crew, unleash your senses with Nerds Gummy Clusters.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
You have to control yourself!
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking, I hate having regret for breakfast. We're talking, a lot of hostility there. And we're talking, don't lie to me, you bastard fornicator. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking, it's about time, that's what.
Did you point at the screen like Leo?
I think it happens twice in this movie, Joe.
I mean, there's so many fucking references to time in this movie.
Everyone, we are discussing Amityville 1992, It's About Time, which is the sixth entry in the Amityville franchise. But Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not narratively connected to any other film.
Okay, so I can give you a crash course of Amityville as we go, or I can just give you a short answer, which is to say most of the films are not connected, but we did a lot of this in the early sequels where it was like haunted object from the Amityville house.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to let you just kind of like explain this to me, because you have been writing about the Amityville films for over 2 years now, by the way.
Yeah.
with your column Amityville IP on Bloody Disgusting, and I'm just curious, I really have to know what made you want to start doing that, and B, is it worth it?
Oh, wow. Really coming at me here strong.
Yep, I sure as shit am.
I mean, the biggest thing was it was a really easy way to have a recurring column on the site. Like, it was a guaranteed, like, oh, I can do this twice a month or seemingly until the end of time. And here we are. I'm still fucking writing these things because they keep making more. And part of it was also just a bit of a novelty, right? Because you hear about all these wackadoo titles, and it makes you wonder, okay, well, what is this movie? Like, you know, when people talk about this movie, this is the Clock Amityville film. There's a Lamp one, you know, there's a bunch of these different films, and you think, okay, well, what are people doing with the concept? So I was legitimately intrigued to start, and then I regretted my decision. And then I hated myself. And now I'm at the point where I just wonder how many hours of my life I've spent watching them. But I will say, I still sometimes get a kick out of them. So even though I'm nearly 60 deep at this point.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's wild. There's some curious oddities every once in a while. It's only truly when people spend $200 and shoot over the course of a weekend with one actor in a room that I really regret my decisions.
Oh my God. Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, you know, these are all Amityville films, but they're not necessarily part... Well, I guess, are they part of the official franchise, or?
So there's no specific ranking, but the purists, aka the people who attacked me when I first started doing this in the comments, they basically will argue that the first 10 are semi-canonical. Some people will say, oh, well, only the ones that went theatrical count, which drops the number down to, I want to say, 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, no one can truly define what makes an actual Amityville. And, we can talk about the IP of the room, depending on whether you've got it in your production history. But the reality is that every time I refer to this, I always do air quotes in either series or franchise, because none of them are canonical.
It is weird, though, too, because this is also based on a quote-unquote, again, using air quotes around this, true story. And so it's this blending of true crime that's morphed into a horror franchise, which feels kind of tacky when you think about it, but I don't find it any less fascinating.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, you basically just summed up a lot of people's reactions to true crime, broadly speaking. But at this point, we're so far removed from George and Kathy Lutz's story. And that was kind of like the barometer of what was legally allowed to be discussed. And then if you don't mention them, then you can make whatever Amityville film you want.
Well, because that's the thing. So everyone, if you have never seen an Amityville film, like just like a quick primer, like basically the Amityville Horror 1979 film was based on a book, but which is itself based on the true story of George and Kathy Lutz, who moved into the supposedly haunted Amityville house at 112 Ocean Avenue, previously occupied by Ronald DeFeo Jr., who shot and killed 6 members of his family. So that becomes the subject of Jay Anson's 1977 book, The Amityville Horror. Then we get Stuart Rosenberg's 1979 film, which I did not realize how much of a hit that movie was, Joe.
Oh, it was fucking huge. It's why we keep getting these, is because there is so much money to be made.
The second highest grossing film of 1979 with $86 million gross, behind only Kramer versus Kramer. So this grossed more than Alien did in 1979.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's not a particularly good movie. Like, it's fine. There's a bunch of things that do become semi-canonical within Amityville films, like the stuff with priests coming in to exorcise the house. We've got some stuff with flies that become very popular for a couple of films. So it does set the mode. It repopularizes the haunted house film. This and Exorcist really do a 1-2 kind of punch. But yeah, for the most part, it's just, there's money to be made in things called Amityville.
Well, also, I mean, I didn't look at the marketing campaign for the original film, but I would imagine they played up the based on a true story part of it, which is exactly what the remake did, too, by the way. But, okay, so we know that we have all these movie sequels, and I was shocked to find out that the book was also sequelized. So 1982 saw the release of The Amityville Horror Part 2, written by a man named John Jones. And this book followed the Lutzes after they moved out of the house and was still, quote-unquote, a true story.
Sure.
Now, you'd think that'd be the end of it, but Jones just kept writing them. So we get 1985's Amityville, The Final Chapter, which also follows the Lutzes and is considered the last true, again, quote-unquote, account of the Lutz family in the Amityville books. And basically, after this, we kind of do away with the Lutzes. And I couldn't tell if it was because they said, hey, please stop writing books about us, or if they were just like, no, we're done with this, like whatever. But basically, we get 1988's Amityville, The Evil Escapes, and then we get 1989's Amityville, The Horror Returns, all of these written by Jones.
Right.
Then in 1991, we got Amityville, The Nightmare Continues, written by Robin Carl. So there's that, and okay. Weirdly enough, though, there was another book series written by Hans Holzer. So, he wrote in 1979, so the year the movie comes out, Murder in Amityville, which tried to explain why Ronald DeFeo murdered his family.
Right.
And then he wrote a sequel to that in 1981 called The Amityville Curse. And I bring that up because that plays a part in the movies.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you just named several movie titles, so they don't always adapt the actual content of the books, but they do take the titles because name recognition and IP.
Yes. So everyone, I'm just going down this list up to 1992. It's about time. We have the Amityville Horror with James Brolin and Margot Kidder. Then after that, we have 1982's Amityville 2, The Possession.
That one's a prequel, and it's incesty.
So that follows the DeFeos, or I guess people who are standing in for the DeFeos?
It's the DeFeos, and we name them. We always name the DeFeos because they are carte blanche. The Lutzes were not supposed to say the names. The DeFeos, fair game.
Interesting. Okay, so then after that, just a year later, we get 1983's Amityville 3D with Meg Ryan and Lori Loughlin.
That one has a great, burning car sequence.
That's wild, because it's also, I think that's a PG-rated movie. But that was the last Amityville film to be released theatrically until the 2005 remake, so you were right on the money with that. Then we had 1989's Amityville 4: The Evil Escape, starring Patty Duke, which was an NBC TV movie, and that was followed by 1990's direct-to-video sequel, The Amityville Curse, starring Kim Coates. Then that brings us to 1992, It's About Time, which was released direct-to-video on July 16th, 1992. So, okay, I do have some details on this film's production because, shockingly enough, the internet was not very helpful here.
No.
Because no one cares about this Amityville movie, I guess. But
most people don't care about the Amityville films, I would argue.
But Joe, okay, but in the Amityville hive, or the fans of this franchise, and I'm assuming since you are, as you said, you are 60-plus films into this franchise, there are gems, or there are movies that the fans are like, okay, no, like if you're going to watch an Amityville movie, you need to watch like this one, right?
100%. There was a reason I picked this one to coincide with the release of The Monkey, because yes, we're talking about cursed objects, hence the tie-in. But yeah, like I could have picked so many different films under that kind of thematic heading. There's a reason I picked this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so y'all, the last 30 minutes of this movie
wackadoodle.
Absolute, like, batshit. Like, I love it so much.
Yeah.
So all of this information I'm pulling is actually coming from interviews with director Tony Randall and producer and co-writer Chris DeFaria that is on, I believe, Vinegar Syndrome's Blu-ray for this movie.
Yeah.
So, okay, a producer by the name of Steve White purchased the rights to John Jones's 1989 novel, Amityville, The Evil Escapes. And so in that book, which was considered the quote-unquote first fictional account of the Amityville story, all of the Lutz's personal belongings were left in the Amityville house. So a yard sale is held, with each object having like an evil entity of some sort attached to it. So when people buy them, they take them home. And it essentially turns the series into an anthology of sorts. I did find it kind of wild, too, that this was written 2 years before Stephen King writes Needful Things.
Yeah.
So, anyway, White hands off the book to Chris DeFaria, who is working for him and aiming to be a producer. But DeFaria was really confused about one aspect of the book, which was that the objects somehow both possessed people and had their own agency and physically attacked people. So,
true, yeah.
He called the author, Jones, to ask what was up, and Jones' reply was just... That's
Shut the
evil.
Fuck up and just do it.
It's unpredictable. It's evil. There you go. That's your answer right there.
Yeah, so, these movies have never had an interest in explaining how any of it works. Like, including this movie, right? Where you're just like, wait, so we're just moving this clock across from East Coast to West Coast. It's still evil. It affects certain people, but not other. Like, the rules are immaterial, completely intangible. And you know what? If you get stuck on stuff like that, I do not recommend watching any of these movies.
God, no, you have to be along for the ride. And granted, I have only seen the remake, this one, Dollhouse. I don't even think I think I've seen parts of the original film, but I always heard it was bad, much like you just said. And so it's just kind of like,
I mean, to be clear, it's not like bad. It's just not particularly exciting. Like, when I rewatched it for the start of my column a couple years ago, I was like, it's just like a derivative haunted house movie.
Yeah, I mean, again, it didn't get good reviews when it came out, which I think is why it's so shocking that it did make that much money. But again, I'm putting all that on the true crime aspect.
Yeah, definitely that.
So, okay, the first Amityville film based on this book and concept was the NBC TV movie Amityville 4: The Evil Escape, starring Patty Duke. And that's the possessed lamp one you said, right?
That one's a good one, too.
Okay, so after that, White realized that there were many limitations about what you could do in a TV movie. So he made the decision to shift to direct-to-video features, because then at least you could make it R-rated and do whatever the fuck you wanted.
Exactly.
I did find this weird, though. So White and DeFaria, they had the hand in Amityville 4: The Evil Escapes, but they were not involved in the fifth film, The Amityville Curse, but...
That one's Canadian.
It is Canadian, but it's also, like, that takes its title from that other book series written by Holzer, not Jones. So, like, I wonder if those are just completely separate from each other. Like, I mean, because it also seems like some of the production might have overlapped. I'm not really sure. I just think that's really odd. But, so I imagine there were different rights at play. But anyway, so DeFaria, wanting to move up in the business and not getting anywhere with White, just basically said to him, look, can I just write the next Amityville movie for you? Because that was the plan, was to keep doing these.
Right.
The Clock movie was next on the list. So White said, yeah, sure. And DeFaria was off to the races, bringing in his friend Antonio Toro as co-writer. And Interestingly enough, Jones is also listed as a third co-writer on this film, so they must have taken a bunch of stuff from this book. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So, how then do we get Hellbound Hellraiser 2 director Tony Randall brought on board?
Which honestly is a big saving grace for why this film works. Like, if this film did not have a strong visual eye, I don't think half of it would land.
Well, and I think that's the thing, watching his interview, it's only like a 13-minute interview, but like he was, maybe not, I wouldn't say passionate about it, but he cared about this movie. Like, I think people can look at a movie like this and say, oh, it's just like this some like, low budget direct-to-video horror schlock from the 90s. That's like the sixth film in the Amityville franchise. And that's correct. But,
it is correct, yeah.
But I think you would assume that people involved would just kind of like phone it in. And I don't think Tony Randall does that here.
No, you're absolutely right. When you watch the interview, it's clear that he wanted to try to do something exciting. He did feel passionate about this project.
Yeah. So Randall was the vice president of production at New World Entertainment, which distributed the first two Hellraiser films. And when he was in that position, Steve White was the president of production at New World Entertainment. So they were buddy-buddy, and so White contacted him to direct Amityville, It's About Time. But when he got the script, he noticed it had nothing to do with the previous entries, so he treated it as a wholly new film rather than a sequel, which, I mean, again, everyone, like, I haven't seen the first 4 or 5 films in this franchise, so it makes sense to me. Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense, but, like, I got through it fine.
Yeah.
So when he came aboard, they developed it a little bit further, adding some concepts. And the main one for him, so he really wanted there to be this kind of overarching theme about circular time, like how people repeat patterns in life, especially toxic ones. And that's what he added to the script. That was his big contribution to the script.
Yeah, and I think you could very easily see it when you know to kind of keep an eye out for it.
Absolutely. And so they shoot the film in Calabasas, California, an affluent suburb of Los Angeles, over the course of 20 days on a budget of $1.2 million. And
that seems like a long shoot for not a very big budget.
Well, I mean, like what's 1.2 million today? Maybe double that. But I mean, all the effects, like kind of like set pieces are in that back 30 minutes. So I wonder if maybe like you kind of get through the first hour relatively quickly. I don't know.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing is like, if we go back and look at the budget for Hellbound Hellraiser 2, it's going to be more than that, but it's probably not that much more. So he knows how to stretch his practical, FX budget to get good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what he does is he calls in some favors. So he brings in production designer Kim Hicks, with whom he had worked on the 1991 film Children of the Night, which is a vampire movie starring Karen Black. But he brought over a lot of people from that movie. I'd never heard of it before. So I was like, oh, this is, I mean, Karen Black, Tony Randall directing. Like, if the effects are anywhere near the level of this in Hellraiser 2, like, by all means, I will watch that shit. But
I mean, the reality is like when we talked about House of a Thousand Corpses and stuff over on Patreon, I think we both confess we don't know a ton about Karen Black, so we haven't seen most of her films. We have no idea.
No. And I mean, truthfully, a lot of them aren't going to be like that kind of like really low budget DTV kind of stuff, but I mean, they have a charm to them.
Sure.
So yes, he brings in Kim Hicks to create what he calls a suburban nightmare. And I love this because one of the first things I noticed when watching this movie, Joe, was the walls of the house. Like they are all... God.
They're fucking ugly.
Solid,
so gross
primary colors. It's like blue and yellow. Like so the nightmare for them came in the way they painted the house. So just to create an overall uneasy and unpleasant environment, and that's why we have all these primary colors on this house.
Yeah. A question for you: do you know if this is a real house that they were shooting in, or was this a set? Because the layout of this downstairs floor, like especially the living room where the clock is set up, is bizarre to me. It just does not seem real.
This seems like it was a real house because I feel like in one of the interviews, maybe it was with the producer, they talked about going around shopping for the house because they had to go see houses. And this I guess was like an up and coming like Weedsy style neighborhood in Los Angeles. But they tell an anecdote about the scene where Lenny the psychiatrist, the coked out psychiatrist, I think, is in the bathtub, and they had the idea to like have the water overflow and like hit the floor and stuff, and they did that. But then after doing that, the floor collapsed and the bathtub fell through the floor. So
no.
So I think it was real. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
But he also brings in K&B Effects Group to do the effects because they also worked on Children of Night with him. So needless to say, like, I think you can see K&B Effects work in here. There is some stuff in here that I don't think anyone would ever expect from a direct-to-video 6th Amityville film.
Mm-hmm. Some of this gore is fucking good.
Yeah. It's just not prolonged. Like, it's really relegated to the end, except for that dog bite. That dog bite is gnarly as fuck.
I know. I love watching it evolve over the course of the film.
But this is wild. Okay, so, I said they had 20 days for filming, and then they had a week, maybe 2 weeks for post-production.
Oh, Jesus God. Okay.
They had several editors working tirelessly to get this thing done, with the head of them being Rick Finney. So he's the only one that gets an editor credit on this, but apparently they had like a team of them working nonstop in the week after they finished shooting.
That was wild. Okay, so we're making... I mean, you said this is very equivalent to direct-to-video, and yeah, like I think this looks a little bit more polished because of Randall's direction, but this idea of like shooting on the cheap, shooting very quickly, editing very quickly, getting this motherfucker out on a VHS tape, and just cashing the checks as soon as they come in.
Yep, that's exactly it. And I do love the toy box score for this movie too. There's a lot of ticking clock sounds in the score, but like, funnily enough, Randall wanted Hellraiser composer Christopher Young to do the score for this, but he knew he couldn't afford him.
I was gonna say, I bet he did, because who the fuck wouldn't?
Exactly. And so, but he did at least get to meet with him and consult with him, and he said, like, do you know anyone that could do this for me? And Christopher Young said, oh, let me direct you to this younger guy named Daniel Licht, who's going to do this for you. And I only bring this up because Licht has gone on to do several things. He did a lot of DTV movies in the 90s, but he's most well known for composing the theme song for Dexter.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he did the score for all of Dexter before his untimely death in the early 2000s.
Oh, that's sad.
I know. And then the experience, though, getting this film out was a much more pleasant one for Randall, because where he had a lot of trouble with Hellraiser 2 and the MPAA, he did not have that trouble with Amityville It's About Time. It got an R rating on the first attempt for horror violence, sensuality, and language.
Yeah, I will say I like that this movie is... Sure, it's direct-to-video, but it's also DTF, because people be fucking, and this is a bit of a horny film, which to me is the other key aspect of a good Amityville film. You need to have some weird sex shit in here. Like, I find all the ones that deal with incest are often the good ones.
That's not surprising to me. I mean, again, in this case, I just feel like you gotta go for it, in an Amityville sequel.
Be weird.
Now, while this was a direct-to-video movie, they did screen it at the Dylan Dog Film Festival in Milan in front of, they said like 5,000 people, which I was like, holy shit, like what auditorium is this? But it did get a positive reception there, and it was also financially successful once released by Republic Pictures on July 16th, 1992. Apparently, Republic Pictures, this independent studio entity, like they had really caught on to the wave of home entertainment releases and figured out how that business operated early, and so they were responsible for many of those DTV films throughout the 90s.
Makes sense. Okay.
Critical reception was, I mean, honestly, probably better than most Amityville films. We're looking at a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 4.1 out of 10, albeit based on 10 reviews. And Letterboxd users have given this a 2.8 out of 5 or a 5.6 out of 10.
Okay. I mean... I'm not going to tell people that they need to watch more Amityville films to understand that this is like a solid 9.5 out of 10 for the quote-unquote franchise. Yeah. But you know what? It's not a fate I would wish on most people.
Yeah, thank you for taking that bullet, or several bullets for us, it sounds like. But yeah, actually, everyone, content warning though, the dog does die in this movie.
Yeah, you watch it get attacked, and then you think, oh no, we're walking it back, because this movie traffics in a lot of hallucinations. And then, yeah, you get to see it decapitated, and you're like, oh, okay, so we got like a double dose of dog attack and murder.
I will say the severed head didn't bother me as much. It really is that, because he stabs that dog in the face with a broken bottle, and it looks real. It
looks good. Yeah. It is hard to watch. Okay. Let's begin with some clock theme score, because we're going to hear this a whole bunch over the course of the film.
Very much so. And, I like that we just like really go leaning into the clock stuff, because we just got to watch this pendulum going back and forth and back and forth. But again, I like the score here. The score I think is great. It reminds me of that Child's Play remake score.
Yes. we are very cognizant of what we are doing. And if it doesn't appeal to you, I can understand that. But it's very in keeping with the film and the title and the subject.
It's all about time. It's about time, y'all.
It's truly all about time. I don't know what more to say to you. Okay, so yes, we've got these credits, and then we open up on old biddy Iris Wheeler, who is played by Nita Talbot, and she's kind of our like witch harbinger character in this film. And I remember thinking, oh God, we're going to do one of these. You know, I thought she was unhoused the first time I watched this. I thought she was going to be lurking around the property and soothsaying and that kind of stuff. And no, she's just kind of like the cool old lady who lives a couple doors down that Rusty goes to visit all the time.
Which I do wish she had a few more scenes, because I agree with you. Like, up until like Rusty goes to see her, I was like, who is this woman? I also similarly thought she was unhoused too.
Yeah, and then you actually get to see her in the daylight, and you realize, oh no, she's just like, she's kind of like a Golden Girls character.
Oh.
Like, she dresses in that sort of Florida look.
She's Bobo Eileen Brennan.
There we go. Yes. So she is staring very intently at this track house, and you said weeds as a reference point. It's very much just identical suburban, nondescript, very generic houses. And it looks like we're in a kind of development phase. Like, I question whether people even live in all of them.
Yes, we don't really get well. There's an ice cream truck going around though with a stork on it, so maybe
there is. Yeah, we have one neighbor. We'll talk about this random cameo when we get down the road, but for the most part, like, you know, there's a point where when we get the dog attack, we've clearly run to the edge of the development, and there's just nothing but pipes and nothing else there. So yeah, so this is the neighborhood of Burlwood Estates. And then a storm is building. So Iris watches as a man exits a cab. He runs to the front door. And this is Jacob, who you might confuse for our protagonist. But Jacob is really more of our inciting incident character. He is played by Stephen Mock, by the way.
Yeah, Bobo Eric Roberts.
Oh, interesting. Who was I thinking of?
He's got a very like severe facial structure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't mean this to sound as mean as it does. It's probably not that mean to most people, but he has a face for television. Like, if I saw him on a kind of nighttime soap, like a Melrose Place in the early 90s, I think he'd fit in.
See, I'm thinking like an NYPD Blue or like In the Heat of the Night type shit.
Okay. Yeah.
But no, but I get you. I see you. I understand you.
Like, he's not unattractive, but he would never be a major movie star nowadays.
No, I mean, again, to me, he's the police precinct captain, but you know.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So in this case, he is the father. So he is greeted at the door, and immediately, like, we don't understand the relationships straight off the bat, but it seems like, okay, this is his wife. She seems a little bit young, and she is cool. Like, she doesn't seem particularly excited to see him. This is Andrea Livingston, played by Sean Weatherly, and you're like, okay, so there's tension in the house.
Oh, and I'm going to tell you right now, this character rocks.
Oh, she's great. And one of the most amusing things I think about this film is how she shouldn't even be here. And the movie keeps acknowledging it to the point where she has like full-on dates with her boyfriend in the house with the guy she used to date.
Yeah. Like, this feels
just like,
very
wait,
progressive. Like, they are on the up and up. But I was really confused though, because she fucks Jacob. Although maybe she's not exclusive with Lenny. I was a little confused by that, but nevertheless, this is a great female character. Like, I love that she's our protagonist in this. And honestly, every time she's like, what? I felt it.
Oh, yes. She is eminently relatable in this film. But yes, okay. So at this point, we just know she's there. She's been keeping an eye on the kids, but she doesn't seem super enthused by Jacob. He does have 2 teenage children. So we have sensitive Heather Langenkamp-esque Lisa, who is played by Megan Ward. And then we have so 90s It Hurts Rusty, who is played by Damon Martin. And I say that because he has an earring, but only in one ear.
Oh my God. Is it the right or the left ear?
It is the left.
Okay, so he's straight then. That was the rule.
This is what we decided back in the day, right?
I will say though too, I really like Rusty as a character. I think when I first started this, I was like, oh, he's going to be kind of obnoxious.
Yes.
No, I like Rusty.
I mean, I think both kids are interesting. We don't get as much from Lisa. She kind of exists so that she can do the hard turn into possession as the film progresses. But I think Rusty is a very... Underrated is a weird word to say because after Andrea, he's kind of the co-lead of the film. But I guess the other thing I love about this movie is how everyone treats him like he is a juvenile delinquent, and we never get any evidence for why.
Yeah. It's just the way he dresses. Like, he has, like, spiky hair. But
sure.
I also think the way that the kids interact with Andrea, too. Like, this is a very... Like, once we learn that she is Jacob's ex-girlfriend and she's just here as a favor, it's like, oh. But the relationship she has with the kids, I was kind of like, oh, this is neat. Like, it's not your typical adversarial, like... She's not a stepmother, but, stepmother relationship. Mother fill-in relationship.
Exactly, yeah, because we will quickly come to learn that he is a widower, and yeah, she did used to live in the house, but that was about 4 years ago, but, they remained not close, because it does seem like Andrea is trying to break away from him, and, like, the more we learn about Jacob, the more he seems like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Or at least, like, a very bad romantic partner.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so he has just come back from a business trip to New York. And he has brought an item with him. It is a garish half-grandfather clock that he purchased above the fireplace. And everybody's just kind of like, what?
I love Andrea's reply to this too, where she's like, I bet he sold you Hitler's pencil box too.
Right? Which, P.S., surprised that we haven't made an Amityville film. Oh, wait, there actually is one where we definitely get Jack the Ripper's knife or pen or something. If you can think it, they've made an Amityville film out of it.
I kind of love that, honestly, not gonna lie.
It's not bad. It's one that has a lot of promise, but it doesn't realize its potential. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jacob mentions, yes, that this came from one of the houses that they were developing back in New York. And then we get this flash of lightning because this movie is nothing if not dramatic.
Oh my God.
And we see Iris's point of view from across the street as she's looking at the house. And we see in the flash of lightning the cat eyes of course, the New York Amityville house over top of the track housing.
Yes, they really try, because they try to, it's not quite a match cut when we kind of like go back and forth between like the Amityville house and this house, but they're like a hallmark of that Amityville house is that like the windows look like eyes,
Yes.
And we really try to do that with the house here. And I think it almost works. I think we need to have a few more cuts too, like just the eye windows. But I almost like it because I kind of wish we would have like kind of developed this idea a little bit more about how these houses are like zombies because they're all in uniform. Like, they look the same. They're cookie cutter. And so I think there's something kind of inherently off-putting about that. So I think, I don't know. I think you could have, I think you could have like looped that in a little bit more. But anyway.
I think so. We get a bunch of repeated visual motifs because we will come to discover that Jacob is an architect. So he has models of the suburban neighborhoods that he's working on, as well as a train set, which will come into play later on in a set piece. But I do love that moment where all of the houses change and become the Amityville house. And that's about as far as we really push it. But I like that the thematic juice is here. The ideas are there. We don't always fully complete them because I just don't think we have the budget or the time or really the inclination. We're here to make a fun DTV movie. But I will say that this is more carefully plotted in a lot of ways than most any other Amityville film.
Yeah, like a modicum of care was put in here.
Yes. Okay. So the kids go to bed because it is late, and then we've got all of this exposition with Jacob and Andrea coming out, and then it's time for them to hop into bed, even though they are exes, and she should leave, and he's already insulted her grad studies, but we jump into bed for some triple X sex, and it's very sweaty.
Oh, God. Like, I was like, I think they just hosed them down before they got in the bed.
Truly, yeah. And I mean, I think in this case, it's supposed to be code for, oh, wow, maybe they're not great romantically. And she wants to move on. And she is technically dating Leonard, who we will meet later. And I love. But Yeah, like clearly the sex is good.
Very, very, very good. But we can already see, like, Jacob is already kind of starting to fall under the clock's thrall at this point.
Yes, because if you think about it, he's actually had more exposure to it by this point as well, because he already slept overnight with it in the room. So he does describe to her about how loud the ticking sound is, and it really kept him up all night. And he looks like he's being affected by it, and we can of course hear this on the soundtrack.
Yes, we will hear ticking a lot in this movie, but I think it works.
I think it works too. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of working, this moment of sentience from the clock. So we have put it on top of the fireplace on the mantle, and then we get this like interior shot of the drill as this thing just drills down, digs into the actual foundation of the house. And basically it's like, cool, I'm home. This place is mine now.
There's also like a grapple thing that comes out of its front, and I felt robbed that we do not see anyone get killed by that grapple.
I know. I mean, you could quibble with, spoiler alert, folks, it was all kind of a dream. We got caught in a time loop movie, so technically none of the deaths count, but the deaths that we do see, there's only a couple.
Yeah, only a couple. But and again, like if we ever remake this movie, you have that grapple like pull someone into the clock, and it's like the blob where that guy gets pulled into the sink where he's like just kind of folded in. Like, I love it.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
There you go. Remake it.
There we go. Yeah, do it. I mean, all you need is $200
and a clock.
And a clock. Oh, God, please no. Okay. So we do get to see what the other people are up to. Like Lisa is always just kind of hanging around doing her own thing, but we see that Rusty plays guitar, and then he is distracted because he comes downstairs and sees neighborhood pooch Peaches is at the back door. The dog just lets itself in, goes into this living room, and begins barking at the clock. And Rusty's like, yeah, okay, you gotta go home.
That's weird.
That's weird.
Also, there's also because Rusty, when he's scared by the dog, he drops, I think, a can of soda. But we get this kind of prolonged overhead shot of the soda as it's spinning and spinning and spinning. And I was like, this is kind of neat. I mean, is it meant to be like a clock hand that's moving in fast motion? I think
know. So. Yeah. Like so many motions are either indicative of repetitive movements or things are stuck in time.
Right. Okay, so there you go, y'all. Like visual shit.
Yeah, because Randall put some thought into it. He chose his shot selection carefully. Okay, so Rusty sends the dog home, but then we get the ticking slowing down as he flicks the lights, and this is our first big moment of special effects trickery. So we change the entire architecture of the living room from its ugly 90s contemporary to medieval torture tableau.
I cannot believe this came out before Hellraiser Bloodline, because this looks like that 17th century France shit that Adam Scott was messing around in.
Well, when we get the history of it, even, I was just like, there is so much overlap. I think I even wrote this when I did this for the Amityville IP editorial. I basically said, this is a secret Hellraiser film.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aspects to it that make it feel like that. And I think, too, the more we get kind of trapped in the house, those and the effects. I mean, the effects are just like, wow. Yeah. Speaking of whoa, that is pretty much Rusty's reaction to this room. He just goes, whoa.
Yeah. I think he thinks that he's dreaming or he's, hallucinating or something. It's kind of like, oh, I'm just imagining things. I'm not actually seeing what I'm seeing. But he does try the light switch a couple of different times. And I like that it doesn't just happen the one time. He actually does manage to get it going a couple times. But then the fuse blows. And then all of a sudden, there's angry dad waiting for you in the stairwell. And it's very much a threatening figure. Like, Jacob is confrontational about why Rusty is up and about.
Yep. And he'll kind of remain confrontational for the rest of this movie.
Yeah, we truly have no idea of what Jacob is like as a father regularly, but throughout the course of the film, he's not going to win Dad of the Year. All right, so we cut to the next morning, and we've got Andrea sort of watching over the kids as they're eating breakfast and getting ready to go to school, and you're like, oh, wow, she really is the surrogate mother.
I'm sorry, did you clock Rusty scooping sugar into his coffee mug?
Oh boy. Every time we see this kid eat, like he eats cereal later on in the film, and you're just like, why is the Foley so loud?
Like, he just takes the sugar bowl and kind of like dumps it into the coffee mug.
Oh no. I'm not going to lie. I can't remember if Patrick and Gina Kill by Kill have done this film. I think they have. But if they haven't, just for their appreciation of the interior decoration and the weird character quirks of this film, it must happen if it has not.
Yeah. Patrick and Gina, hear us out.
There we go. Yeah. So Andrea, she's kind of making sure that the kids get off to school on time, and Rusty does seem disinterested. So at this point in the narrative, it feels like we're doing a very traditional stepmother thing where she's trying to relate to the kids. They're a little bit standoffish, but Lisa does seem to welcome her because she wants to know if Andrea is still going to be there when she gets home. So you're like, okay, so the women have a better relationship.
Yeah, and again, I could have taken more scenes with Lisa pre the change because she doesn't really have a lot to work with. But again, this scene with her and Andrea, I liked this relationship. Yeah.
Okay, so it's now Jacob's turn to run. He gives her a kiss. He encourages her to, stick around until she has to go to class. He's off for a jog. So he ends up at the edge of the development, and then his stopwatch mysteriously fails. And this seems to occur right at the moment that we get Peaches, as well as Peaches' owner, Mrs. Tetman, who is played by Terry Snell, standing there just watching him. And it's almost Children of the Corny.
Yeah, okay. I'm really glad you mentioned that too, because I feel like, when we're talking about direct-to-video, like horror franchise sequels in the 90s, it's pretty much populated by Amityville movies and Children of the Corn movies.
Yes. Yeah. And also Hellraiser movies as we move into the latter part of the decade.
The problem, those start in like the 2000s, I think.
Oh, actually, you are right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that some of them feel so 90s, but...
They were probably written in the 90s.
Back before they became Hellraiser movies, you mean?
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Okay, so we see Mrs. Tetman, and Peaches is acting aggressive. She is completely dead-faced. It's like she's not even there. She's checked out. She's in a dream, and... Jacob is kind of like, oh, what's going on here? And then this dog mauls him.
I mean, and look, you can tell that this is like clearly like a fake dog head because, I mean, as I said earlier, y'all, like Jacob just breaks a glass bottle and shoves it into this dog's eye. And we don't...
Slow-mo.
Yeah, and we hear the yelp. The yelp is always the hardest thing for me to hear when a dog gets hurt. But like, this is, really for a dog attack, like,
and
Cujo,
it's sustained.
Where are you?
Like
it goes
it's
on
not
for
like,
a while.
oh, the dog just grabs his leg. It's like the dog grabs his leg, bites his arm. He manages to beat it off, and then he tries to climb over the fence that he's backed up against. Dog grabs him by the leg, pulls him back down again.
Yeah.
It goes on for a bit. It's hard.
But again, and I'm not going to quibble with logistics or rules or whatever, but basically none of this is... Well, it is real because his wound is real, but this isn't actually Mrs. Tetman or the dog. They're just physical manifestations caused by the clock, even though they're not inside the house.
Oh, see, I go the other way, where I think this is all real, and then when we see her and the dog and everything seems fine, that's the facade. That's the fake.
Oh, I mean, you know what? Whatever. Either one.
Yeah, all this to say, it's the first instance of what can we trust in terms of what we're seeing on screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so... Jacob is severely injured. He needs to go to the hospital, so Andrea has to take him. She is immediately mistaken for his wife, so the doctor is like, all right, here's all the things you got to do. You got to dress the wounds every 8 hours. You got to get him to take these drugs. By the way, they may result in mood swings.
Yeah. So in case he's acting weird, just brush it off as the meds.
I will say, though, the film doesn't lean into that in the way that I thought it would. We don't have Andrea being like, oh, wow, he's just acting weird, but it's probably the drugs. She clocks... Oh, damn it, now She ends up on Rusty's wavelength about the evil, I want to say day 2.
Yeah, I mean, also, anyone who crosses paths with Jacob is like,
What's
something's
his deal?
not right with you.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the pain medication he's on because he's doing a bunch of other weird shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so another fun, albeit weirdly unnecessary shot is we get this POV roaming shot through, people's back alleys. It's like backyards and so on.
Right.
And this is actually just Rusty coming up to Iris's back patio so that they can play chess.
Yeah, again, would have taken more of this too, because I liked this relationship Rusty had with Iris, because that's the only scenes Iris gets before her quote-unquote death.
Yeah, like it's all her and Rusty. She gets several of them, and then, yeah, we've got to get rid of her.
But luckily, she seems to believe Rusty.
Immediately, yeah. So he tells her about what he saw in the living room with the switch, and she just goes, oh, yeah, you're talking about it, as in evil.
I was trying to figure out. I was like, wait. Does she mean, like, does she already know it's the Amityville thing? Because we saw her, like, see the house, but, like,
she seems to not name it, but she definitely understands that it is something evil.
Yes. And she's kind of, because she has all these books in the occult that we'll find later, and she's like a, I don't know.
There's no explanation. We have no idea what her background is. Like, why does she have all these books? Is she a mystic? Is she a historian? Is she a witch? The answer's just yes.
Yeah, like she's there to provide a little bit of exposition on this clock.
And also have a very striking character actress face, right? Like, she is a memorable character in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so back in the driveway, we've come back from the hospital, and Andrea admits that the timing of Jacob's injury kind of sucks, because now she has to drop everything. Like, she had papers that she needed to write, she's got all these other things, and now she's going to have to take care of him. So she agrees to do it, but it's only going to be for a couple of days, aka the time of the film.
The rest of the movie.
Okay, so we get him up into bed, and he is complaining that the bright light is hurting his eyes. And we get this close-up shot where we can really see just how bad his leg looks. If anything, it is starting to look worse. Like, we're getting pus, it's weeping, it's very gross, and it will only get worse as the film goes on.
Like, she pours the antiseptic on it, and the whole thing just fizzes.
Yes. It's like when you put baking soda and vinegar. Yeah. It's just like, oh, that produced a chemical reaction.
Yeah. But I mean, again, like, we will, as you said, like, we keep looking at this leg wound as it just gets worse and worse and worse throughout the film. And it looks good, man. Like, I winced every time I looked at this.
Yeah. And it's properly gross. It's not like, ooh, look at those special effects. Unrealistic. Like, when we get to the final stage, you think, oh, wow, I wouldn't be surprised if we had to amputate. It looks gangrene.
Oh, 100%. Which really, too, that's the thing where it's like kind of like, well, I mean, obviously it's the clock doing this to him, but like the mental stuff could also be excused.
Oh, yeah. Like,
explained by that.
He's got an infection. He's got a fever. I'm sure all of these things.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of, we need to rule out rabies because this is a dog bite. So Andrea collects Rusty so that we can go and visit Mrs. Tetman, and we ask about rabies. And this woman just says, I have no idea what you're talking about. This didn't happen, and Peaches is fine.
Okay, so you think, I mean, again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, but like you read this as, this is the fake shit.
This is the evil.
Got it.
Yeah. Needless to say, somebody seems like they're lying, or like what really happened, we don't really know anymore. So Rusty tries to say, hey, I think there's some evil here. I was talking to Iris about it, and Andrea just goes, you need to leave the zombie voodoo metalhead view of the world stuff alone. And I was just like, okay, that is oddly specific. That's many different things in one descriptor. And then you look at this kid, and he could be auditioning for a B-grade version of, like, Backstreet Boys.
Like, yeah, because we will hear people refer to his friends, the friends he hangs out with, and that's why
we never see.
But we never see them. And so it's just like, okay, like, honestly, like, you just gave this kid spiky hair, a black shirt, and an earring, and maybe, like, a chain necklace, and said, bam, bad news.
P.S. This was me in the 90s. Like, this is, and admittedly, I I was with some not great friends and we did get into some trouble. But, you know, in the way that Andrea treats him suspiciously at the beginning, the way the cops treat him as this film progresses, you would think that this kid is satanic. Like, he would be goth if this movie was remade. He would be full goth now.
100%. Like, I mean, the way the cops talk to this kid, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. And it is a shame. I think if this movie had a longer shooting schedule and a bit more money, we could play with this. Like, we could see him with his friends getting into trouble, maybe, you know, stealing or spray painting or something like that, just to really reinforce it. It's hilarious when you watch this movie because this kid basically just plays guitar and everybody treats him like he's the Antichrist.
Like, that's very, very true. Whenever he's not with anyone else, he's usually in his room playing guitar.
Yeah. It's so funny. Anyway, he's trouble. Don't trust him.
Don't trust him.
Okay, so back in the dark house, Andrea finds a very feverish-looking Jacob questioning his life's purpose. So he's in his office, but the office should not be confused with the basement. The basement is where the train and the Amityville set will be. In his office, he has like a smaller version as well as a drafting table. This is where all of the different instruments are hanging up against the wall, which will come into play in the climax. So his drafting compass or triangle thing that Andrea ends up using as a weapon.
Okay.
But yeah, he's basically saying like, oh, wasted my life. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And she says, you're sick. Let's get you back to bed. So then we're down in the kitchen. We're making dinner. Jacob is still upstairs because he is out of it. So it's just Andrea and the kids. And she says, hey, Rusty, can you go and get the phone book from the living room? Trace, I love this. It's not showy, but showy in all the right ways. Again, Randall did not need to do this. It's a long take tracking shot. We follow Rusty as he goes from the kitchen to the living room, collects the phone book, and then comes back. And obviously several hours have passed because the entire meal has been cleared. Lisa is no longer there, and Andrea says, hey, what happened to you? You just got up in the middle of dinner and disappeared for a while.
I'm so glad you noticed this too. This is an effect that was all done in camera. So literally we stayed with him and they had like a crew of like 10 people that was like, all right, clear the room really quick. You have 10 seconds and go back to it. Like, again, you're right. Didn't have to do this, but we do it and it works.
It does work. I think it's not as showy as we've seen in other films. Like we do this. Oh, I want to say, is it the first Conjuring movie?
Probably.
It's either an early Conjuring movie or an early Insidious movie where it's like a character leaves, we come back and everything in the kitchen is like completely open, all the drawers and windows and stuff. I think we do it in a Poltergeist movie as well.
Yeah, it's definitely Poltergeist. She walks out, comes back in, and all the chairs have been stacked up on top of the table.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love this kind of stuff. It's just, it's very fun. It's a showy piece. I guess in this case, it's just a bit more understated to the point where I think people could actually miss it if they're not paying attention, that there is no edit.
It's because it's not effects based. Like this is a scare slash, not a set piece per se, but it's something that doesn't rely on special effects to get it done. This is just people moving shit. And I think you're right. It's understated because it's not calling attention to itself in that way.
Yeah, the bigger mystery is just, oh, that is so odd. Why did I just lose possibly a couple hours of time?
Yeah.
So we realize, every time we go into the... Shut up. Because we realize every time we sort of interact with the space that the clock is in, which is this living room set, then, time gets a little wonky.
Yeah.
And folks, I cannot stress enough how ugly this living room space is. So I mean, Trace, you mentioned it's like bright blue walls, and then no,
it's like royal blue. It's it's like, it's not like cyan or baby blue. It's like this deep blue, but it just covers every inch of these walls.
Yes, yeah, except for like the hallways coming in from the front door leading into this are like speckled blue eggshell. It just it's so gross looking. The carpet, like it's very obviously early 90s, but even the living room, it's almost like like an octagon or a pentagon. The room is very oddly laid out.
Actually, yeah, no, that's a really good point. And actually, I'm going back to your question about whether this was a set or a house or not, because this living room, the shape of it is just weird. It's
so weird.
Off. Yeah.
I don't think that's the intent. It was probably just, this is the house that gives us the layout that we can work with and we can get it for our production budget and so on. But looking at it from a contemporary point of view, it's like, what the fuck is this house layout? Something is off. Something is wrong. This house is evil. Okay. So, weird moment for Rusty. Later on, Lisa overhears Andrea speaking to Leonard on the phone. So, this is the boyfriend that we have not yet met. And then the women discuss their respective romantic relationships. So, Lisa is a virgin. She's kind of a novice to dating her boyfriend, Andy, who we will meet later on in the film. And Andrea's kind of like, yeah, I'm trying to break away from this not great relationship with your dad. He's lovely, but that's not where I am anymore. Leonard is better for me. And the whole time we hear the clock ticking on the soundtrack.
Tick. Yes, we do. It's honestly, I think I got to a point where I stopped hearing it after a while. Like it was just so baked into the soundtrack that I forgot it was there.
It feels like it's often there, and sometimes we just turn it up a little bit when we really want to make sure that the audience knows and hears it. Like now. So it's the middle of the night. Lisa is downstairs sleeping in the living room because Andrea has taken her bed. And
which doesn't make a lot of sense, really. I mean, Andrea can sleep in the fucking living room.
Truly. Yeah. I mean, she is the guest and she's taking care of Jacob. Maybe she needs to be closer to him. I don't know.
Are you telling me this house doesn't have a fourth bedroom?
This house is huge. Let's be clear.
Like, come on.
Yeah. So Lisa's downstairs. She cannot move this clock because clearly it's keeping her awake. So she's like, oh, I'll just move it somewhere else. But she can't lift it because it's drilled in place at this point. So then we get the chiming on the hour. And all of a sudden, the living room door shuts and locks her in, and she freaks out. And I love this moment. She is grabbing the door. She's yelling for help. We cut to the other side in the hall. Silence.
Nothing. Yes.
Don't hear her at all.
Oh, and this will come back later at the end when I love it. Love it.
It's great. And you think, okay, we didn't actually have to do anything for this effect, right? We closed the door. And then we just, like remove the actress, shot it from the other side, silence. But it's really effective because you think, this is uncanny. This is unnatural. What's going on here? Okay, so Lisa is trapped in there and no one can hear her. But then upstairs, Andrea feels someone climb into bed behind her. And she thinks it's Lisa, obviously. And then she puts her hand out to kind of reassure her, and she pulls it back, and it is black and sticky like tar.
Because we're hearing all these squelching sounds in the lead up to this, which again, you're kind of like, all right, squelching in a horror movie, that's not good.
Not good, yeah. And she, you can actually see a figure kind of start to come out of this goo next to her, and she freaks out, so she throws on the light switch, and of course, there's nothing there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that too, because we kind of get it's almost like a zombie type figure that makes a couple of appearances in this film. We'll get it later in the bathtub, but that's it. We don't really do anything else with this entity, whatever it is.
It's just the manifestation of evil, but it seems purposely designed to unmoor people, to make them scared or terrified or just not trust their surroundings. That's how I read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Randall shifts to these handheld shots. So there's a sense of urgency. We're quite a bit closer to the actors and it feels like things are speeding up. So this is Andrea discovering that Lisa has been locked in the living room and we're right in the mix with these actors. And then Andrea thinks, okay, well, who would have locked your sister in? It
Rusty.
Obviously had to be Rusty because he's also the Antichrist. So she goes to admonish him and he says, well, I was just playing guitar and then I went for a walk. And she maybe rightfully suspects him. Who goes for a walk in the middle of the night? But the reality is that
he didn't do it.
What he was doing, he didn't do it. But then at this point, Mrs. Tetman does discover the decapitated head of Peaches the dog by the pool.
It's in the drain. I was just like, because she hears the dog whining from in the drain, and it's just like, ooh. So yeah.
How did the dog get in there? Is it it's not okay.
Yeah. This is really the clock's really going off. So, we have Lisa locked in the room, we have Black Tar, we have Dead Dog, and then the next morning, the clock has apparently gotten up and drawn a swastika on Mrs. Tetman's garage door.
I was going to say, is it Amityville? Is it evil? Or is it just the state of the Republican Party in 2025?
Maybe so. But yeah, I just kept trying to be like, okay, wait. Did this clock grow legs and arms, grab some paint, walk over there, paint the swastika, walk back, remove its limbs, and drill itself back into the mantle?
I mean, no. I love where your head's at. The most realistic idea is just that it has the ability to manipulate time and space, right? Like, how did it close the door on Lisa and lock her in? Yeah. It can just do things. But if you really need an answer, you could believe it possessed a body too. Like, maybe it did take over Rusty and get him to spray paint this. We don't know.
Or maybe Jacob did it. I mean, Jacob's, sweating and bleeding and pussing somewhere.
Yeah, or Mrs. Tetman. We don't know.
I don't even know. Mrs. Tetman's real at this point.
It's true. Yeah. Okay, but needless to say, the police are on the scene because this is a hate crime that has been graffitied onto someone's garage door. So they suspect Rusty. They want to talk to him. They ask Andrea because she's the mother. Oops, sorry, no, she's not. But yes, she will act in that capacity. So she's like, all right, I got to go and talk to Jacob about all of this. And he is sicker, more manic, and more belligerent than he has been in the past. So he is getting worse.
He's like tweaking out. Like he seems like a drug addict in these scenes.
He is going through it. Yeah, he's not in his right state of mind. Yeah. Okay, so cut to that night. The police have come. They are all up in Rusty's face about this cut and dry incident. They have already decided to throw the book at this kid because they are so sure it's him.
Literally in his face. This lady cop gets like 2 inches away from his face. Like, you might as well tell us you did it. We know you did it.
You're just like, oh, wow, police intimidation. And it's happening in his own house in front of his surrogate parent. Okay.
This is comical to me. Like, this is just so funny.
Yeah. Okay, let's introduce my favorite character of the film. It's finally time for Leonard to stop by. He is played by Jonathan Penner. He is a doctor, so he's a psychiatrist, and yeah, he is dating Andrea, but he also feels incredibly comfortable coming into Jacob's house so that they can have a picnic date because she apparently has to stay here to look after Jacob. But I'm just like, who?
Yeah, I know.
Like, your new boyfriend comes to your ex's house where you're staying so that you can have a romantic dinner and then fuck.
So, okay.
What are we doing?
I was trying to figure out where I knew this guy from, too, because I was like, oh, Joe, you like him because he looks like Frank from Hellraiser.
He definitely does. A little less hot, but yeah.
Jonathan Penner, I was like, why do I know this face? Why do I know this name? Why do I know? Have you ever seen the 1995 black comedy The Last Supper with Cameron Diaz?
Oh, yes, I have.
Okay,
of course I have.
So that movie, it's Cameron Diaz, it's Ron Eldard, it's Annabeth Gish, Courtney B. Vance, and then
folks,
Jonathan
it's a
Penner.
banger. So good. It's really
good. But Jonathan Penner is one of these people because he was married to the director, Stacy Tidal, who was the director of The Bye Bye Man.
Okay, well, let's not talk about The Bye Bye Man.
It's her two big films. She did The Last Supper and The Bye Bye Man. One of them is good, one of them is not.
That is wild. Oh, I feel like I remember him because, I mean, I said, oh, he's not as hot as Frank from Hellraiser, but we do get to see his body in this. So, folks, obviously we're talking about this because it's a cursed object film, as I said, tying into The Monkey, coming soon to Patreon, blah, blah, blah. But this movie has a curious interest in the male form. Like, we do sexualize Lisa. We turn her into a little teen vamp and stuff. But the film more often than not is like, let's get the men half naked. Let's show some highlights. Let's show some bikinis and briefs and so on.
Because the most nudity we get from the females, I mean, granted, it is a lot. Like, we were really focusing on Andrea's boobs in that first sex scene with her and Jacob. But, like, even in the set piece with Lisa, like, she is sexualized, but we're not really, like she doesn't get naked. She's mostly
she's in
clothed
control.
for most of it. Yeah.
And then she puts on a leatherhead jacket to cover more of her up while she asks her boyfriend to get nearly fully naked.
While we get full-on VPL in those tidy whities.
Oh,
like, you could see where the shaft and the ball sack, like, separated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're seeing everything. The only thing we didn't do is spray him down with water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. But yeah, all this to say, curiously appreciative of the male form. This movie, Amityville, 1992, It's About Time.
I mean, I do think that Penner is at least shirtless for most of his scenes.
Often, yeah.
Often.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got the introduction of Rusty and Leonard. So the first time they meet each other, Rusty makes fun of Leonard's shoes. And Leonard, just to really confirm that he's going to try to be a mediator in all of these situations, he says that he hopes that they can open up a dialogue later. And I was like... Why? Leonard, why do you care about making an impression with this family that Andrea is not actually a part of? It makes no sense and I love it.
It just has to be. It just has to be. This poor he's not quite the audience surrogate because he's not good at handling a lot of this stuff in the same way that Andrea is. But that makes would we call him the comic relief?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he gets all the funny reactions, and then he gets a set piece, and then he's just gone, and it's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in the hall, this is where Jacob is now very gross. Like, he's in the hallway, and he's not wearing pants because he's just got his bandage, but, like, we can see that the leg looks extra gnarly now.
You can see the pus through the bandages. Like, not blood. You can see, you can see blood, but you can see pus. And Lenny's just like, you should see a doctor.
Yeah. Like, I'll refer you for sure because you're not okay. And, you know, Jacob is still very sickly, feverish, belligerent, and so on. So he ignores Leonard's offer to help. And then we go on to our picnic date between Lenny and Andrea. So they're out on like some kind of balcony or veranda, just eating Chinese food. And Lenny doesn't even want to talk about how weird this fucking situation is. He just wants to psychoanalyze Andrea's existing relationship with Jacob by suggesting that Jacob did all of this to keep her in the house. Like, and, you know, this is me being very facetious, but I think the movie does have an interesting little kernel to say about toxic relationships and how Andrea just keeps getting sucked back into Jacob's orbit.
Well, because I also even caught this with Lenny, though, because I think it's Lenny who's like telling her, like, I know the pain that you've been through. I love, or maybe that's Jacob saying this to her, but one of these men says this to her, and it's like, well, what does that have to do with you? Like,
yeah. Yeah, like men really want to ascribe feeling sentiments, all this kind of stuff. Like, they really want to speak for Andrea in this film. And I think that's why the film's title, it's so ungainly, right? Like, the title of this movie, Amityville, 1992, It's About Time. It doesn't roll off the tongue. It's kind of awful. But when we get to the end of the film and Andrea just leaves on that note, it's very satisfying. Because you feel like she's finally earned it. Like she's realized, I don't need to be sucked into this repetitive cycle anymore. I'm going to go off and be by myself.
I mean, this is Andrea's story. Fuck the clock. Fuck the family. Like, this is Andrea's story.
Yeah. The family just gets all sorts of weird set pieces.
Yes.
Okay, so she does end up getting a time-based fortune cookie. Like, literally, the entire fucking thing is just time.
Joe, it's about time.
It's about time. And then, this picturesque date is interrupted because we realize that the neighbor, Mr. Anderson, who is played by Dick fucking Miller, his hedges are on fire, Trace.
So this was, like, Tony Randall was like, oh, yeah, I come from, like, the world of Roger Corman, and, like, Dick Miller's, like, a god tier there, so I just love to do a scene with him, and we got him, and I was like, good for you.
Yeah, because this is the only time we will see him. We reference the hedges as being too tall earlier, so Mr. Anderson makes this funny kind of like, oh, I guess they're up to code now because we burned them down 2 feet. You're like, okay, cool. Dick Miller, so weird. Okay, so at the same time as this is happening, we have Lisa on her own date with her boyfriend Andy, who is played by Dean Cochran, and he's not a character. He is a caricature. He's a horny teenage guy who just wants to fuck Lisa.
Again, though, this line delivery, he's like, what? No kiss when she won't kiss him because he's just dropped her off at the house, and she's like, hold on, I think my house is burning.
Yep. That is this movie. This is why I love this movie, because it is just filled with weird interactions like this. And you think, that's kind of gold. I love it.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, of course, we've had more acts of petty vandalism, which means Andrea accuses Rusty of setting this fire. And she even calls him an evil force. Andrea, come on. Okay, so Leonard aggressively yells at Andrea, like, we need to leave. You've done enough. You have definitely put in your time. It's actually all very sage advice. She should probably listen to him. Like, no matter how much you feel indebted to your ex, you don't need to live with him and his 2 teenage kids as weird shit is happening just because he got bitten by a dog. Like, he's rich. He can hire a caretaker, like a day nurse or something.
Oh, yeah, a day player.
No, not like an actor. Like
no,
someone to come in and take care of it.
That was a joke.
I didn't get it. Explain it to me further. Okay, but here's the thing. He accuses her of still being in love with Jacob, which is probably a little bit true.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so to prove that she's not off-screen fucking, so it's ironic that we did get to see her fully nude in this opening scene with Jacob, but here with the person she's actually supposed to be dating, it's just we cut and we can hear them having sex behind the door.
Yeah, we don't show this at all.
Yeah. So now is a great scene because Leonard clearly didn't actually plan to stay over. He just came for this dinner. He wears her teal robe down to the kitchen to pick up some leftovers. And this is very clearly a woman's robe because it goes down to maybe just past dick length. So he is also wearing it open at the chest and open below the waist. So he's just wearing underwear as he goes around the kitchen. He's nuking the Chinese food. He sits at the table, and we get this great overhead shot of the ceiling fan slowing down as we hear the microwave counter slowing down.
This is cool. Like this all. Yeah, it all works. It all works.
It's great. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a fully healed, very calm, very scary looking Jacob is sitting across the table from Leonard, and he is brandishing a Walter PPK gun, which is the James Bond gun, by the way.
I was going to say, I was like, oh wait, I know that from GoldenEye days, but yes.
Yeah. And he basically accuses Lenny of being there to fuck not just Andrea, but
Lisa
also
too.
Lisa. And then does shoot him and this is a hallucination.
Well, this is when we get your line. Don't lie to me, you bastard fornicator. Because
yeah.
But I will say, though, I actually found this very tense because it's very rare to see a man in a horror movie be this scared. And really, Pinner sells the fuck out of this because Jacob is grilling him like, "Did you fuck her? No. And then finally he caves and he's like, Yes, I did.
He's so pathetic. I love it. And the whole time he's sitting there in this woman's robe with his legs fully exposed. Like we can see his underwear. So it's an extremely vulnerable state for this grown man that we've been told is a doctor, highly confident, very qualified and so on. And he's just reduced to this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He gets another set piece later too in that bathtub, but what an unfortunate time for this character.
Truly, yeah. Just wanted to date this woman, and apparently this is what he has to go through. But
he wanted to fuck this woman and fix all her problems.
That's the thing. I'm not going to pretend like Lenny is a great guy because he clearly is a bit of a shit to Andrea. Like Andrea doesn't have great options in the
He's not a bad guy. He's just not a great guy.
Exactly. He's probably a better option than Jacob has been.
I mean, there's less children with Lenny, so yeah.
Wow. That we know.
Although, I guess, though, they're teenagers, though. Like, the raising is maybe it's not dumb by that point, but they're off on their own doing their own shit.
Yeah. Spray painting swastikas and beheading dogs.
Yes,
setting
exactly
fires. Okay, so Andrea does end up finding Lenny. He is properly unnerved. He's a little bit upset. Meanwhile, Lisa still cannot deal with this clock. All she hears is the ticking. So she gets up because she's still trying to sleep in the living room. And she goes to the mirror trace because she sees her reflection. And you know exactly where the scene is going to go. Yeah. You can predict every outcome except maybe the bloody jizz on the mirror at the end. But this is, the mirror reflection starts to do things. It's touching itself all sexy, provocatively. And then the hands reach out through the mirror. It's basically mirror.
100%. But I love this. Like the clock's goal for Lisa is, I'm going to make you a slut.
Exactly this. Yeah. And this is a very interesting moment because it's kind of like when you kiss the mirror so you can practice your kissing if you're a teenage girl or something like that. But this is full on maybe Lisa's first orgasm because we watch the hands go into her top and then down. We don't get to see anything, but she is like gasping and writhing in pleasure, and then she falls to her knees at the end of it, and that's where we see the bloody jizz coming down the mirror. You're like, okay, so this was a sex scene.
It's kind of cool, actually. I mean, well, I guess
it's gross, but it's cool.
Yeah. It's you know what? When's the last time you saw someone fuck a mirror?
I mean, yeah. It feels like something we could probably say we've seen a fair number of times in horror films because this does happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does happen in Mirror, Mirror, doesn't it?
It happens in Mirror, Mirror, and I want to say it happens in that Kiefer Sutherland movie too, doesn't it?
Mirrors? Oh, no.
Just murder stuff in that one? Never saw it.
It's just murder stuff in that. It's a very stupid movie, but it's entertaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so next morning, Andrea asks Rusty about the evil. This is when he's eating the cereal, and it sounds like he is eating the loudest cereal of all time.
Because Andrea also tells him, she does that line. I think you believe that, but I just can't. I hate that. Like I believe you believe it, but I don't believe you. Ugh.
Yeah, she's not quite there yet, but she's coming around to it. And he's very calm, very rational, despite the fact that he's been accused by the police of doing all these terrible fucking things.
On top of seeing all of these things that the clock has done, Rusty is like, I'm just going to go play guitar, man.
Yeah. Well, he does explain to her that whatever it is, it's actually inside of them and the house and that they need to get out, which is a very Amityville film thing to do. It's basically, we can't even get out of the house if we wanted to. Unlike, say in Insidious house where you can get out of it, but you're going to take it with you kind of deal.
Right. But that's why it goes for George Lutz, in the Amityville horror where it's like, he's not a bad guy, but there's something in him that the evil is latching onto. Well, unless it's just supposed to be that the Amityville evil makes you evil. I've never really been clear on it. Yeah.
I always felt that, it was more the former, where it can capitalize on the innate evil that lives within all of us.
Yes.
Because whenever we see Ronald DeFeo, who's the person who originally commits the murders,
right.
Shotguns his entire family, which is a true crime case.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, well, he wasn't right. He was hearing voices and he wasn't sleeping and all these other things. So I think part of it is trying to understand the banality of evil and how everyday people could be driven to commit violent acts.
Yeah.
Yeah. All this to say, everyone in this movie is just cuckoo bananas. It's not because they're evil. It's because they're definitely being possessed by an evil clock.
Well, Lisa has some repressed sexuality going on, so that's what it pulled out of her.
Yeah. And we see this here because she comes down and she's going to school dressed only in her father's blazer. And I gotta say, she has fuck me late 80s, early 90s hair. It is teased out, and this blazer look, she actually looks really fucking sexy.
Oh no, she looks great. I also love the on the noseness because she puts an anklet on, and the anklet is handcuffs.
Yeah. And then she says, "Don't wait up. I'm going to be out with Andy tonight." She might as well just say, "I'm going to go fuck my boyfriend."
Right?
Yeah. All right, so we're over at Iris's house because Rusty is still trying to get some answers, so she makes him describe what he saw in the vision more clearly. So we see tapestries, black candles, this butcher's block table with saws and chains and pentagrams and so on.
Thank God, Joe, she has a tome that has the exact hand-drawn picture of this room that he saw. Out of all the books in the world, out of all the books in her house, she has the exact picture.
Yes, yeah. It looks like someone storyboarded what they were going to shoot, and then we just put that into a book so that Iris could look at it later. It's great.
Okay, sure, whatever movie, let's go.
Yeah, but this is from the 15th century French necromancer and cannibal, Gilles de Rais. And I will say, this is fully Hellraiser 4. This is so fucking Hellraiser in 4, right?
Yes, but to the point where I was a little surprised we don't see anyone from the past. We don't see Rusty see a torture guy walk by or something,
Yeah, I mean, that's just added budget, and I don't know that we really need it, but I am surprised that when Hellraiser Bloodline comes out, 4 years after this, that we don't get into trouble?
It's funny too, kind of unrelated, but kind of related. But I was watching this on streaming on Amazon, and I've noticed lately that the AI subtitles, I think they're AI subtitles, because they kept saying that French guy's name. It just said inaudible context.
Oh my God. Come on. That is too funny and also awful.
Yeah.
Okay, so because Rusty has gone to see Iris, that means he did not go to school, so Andrea picks him up in the car and immediately takes him back to the house and grounds him, even though we're all acknowledging she is not his mother. That she's trapped in this cycle. Because it's all about time. And Okay, so this leaves Iris to then research more about the Amityville house. We get flashbacks to the opening scene, which I don't love. It often feels like we're just trying to run out the clock a little bit. Haha.
Yeah.
We get it. You know, it's useful to remind us, but also we know that we're watching a movie called Amityville. We know what the house looks like.
And this movie's 95 minutes long. Like, you can cut out 5 minutes and it's fine.
Yeah. I will say there are many Amityville films that come in at a hot 63 to 67 minutes, and then you take out the 5 minutes of credits that we repeat from the beginning at the end of the film. Oh, does an Amityville film love to just scrape across the feature film finish line? I will say, though, sometimes I'm also very glad for that because I don't want to watch more of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I'm sure it's a blessing that some of them are shorter.
You have no idea. Yeah. Okay, so Iris has figured out this new clue. She tries to call Rusty so that she can warn him, but he is grounded, so Andrea doesn't let him pick up the phone. And then this is where we get Iris's big death scene. And Trace, did this remind you of a Final fucking Destination death size.
Okay, so that was my immediate go-to. However, given the time period this movie came out, I'm going to say this is The Omen. We're doing The Omen in this scene. But it's like this Rube Goldberg. It's not quite Rube Goldberg, but it is. Like she almost dies several times. Like I love this. The ground opens up beneath her and traps her cane, so she's stuck, as if she can't just let go of the cane. Like I mean, maybe she can. You know,
she's a bit of an older lady. But, she's not as mobile.
But then like the ice cream truck with a stork on it is running away. It's almost gonna hit her. She dives away. Oh my god, she barely makes it. The brick mailbox protects her. We think we're fine. She's good. And then
did you think the bricks were going to fall on her and kill her?
I sure shit didn't think the stork was gonna fall on her.
It's so good. Yeah, this thing is it's on a spring. So it's moving back and forth, and then the spring just breaks off and it impales her and she dies.
Like the beak of the stork. But like we hold on this rocking back and forth stork thing, which is it ice cream? Why is it a stork ice cream?
I couldn't understand what he was actually delivering. I was like, maybe it's baby supplies, but that doesn't make any sense. Because there's definitely a Pop Goes the Weasel lullaby musical score that we're playing out of the truck.
Is it milk? Like, do people still have milk delivered in 1992?
Maybe. Oh, it could be milk.
Like stork and baby and milk. I don't know.
Maybe. Anyway, this sequence is fucking great. It's so stupid.
Funny.
It's so great. I love it.
Well, I also do love that because like she keeps staring at the stork rocking on her, and like when it's doing its final, like when it falls on her, we just get this great shot of her just screaming. I'm like, girl, roll over.
Charlize, stop running in a straight fucking line.
And an idiot woman who can only run in straight lines. And an idiot old woman who can't roll over.
Truly that, yes. Okay, so Rusty has snuck out of the house and he's broken into Iris's house because he knew that she called and he assumed that she had something to tell him. So he gets caught for the B&E by these two cops who just truly want to nail his ass to the wall.
No, they're not doing their jobs. They're just like staking out this kid.
They're just waiting for this one kid to commit some kind of felony.
Anything.
Yeah, so they do end up arresting him, and we get this sad moment where he's just in the back of the police cruiser watching as Iris's bloody dead body is being carted away.
And I felt for him. This was his friend. He loved her.
Here's the thing. We hear that he has bad friends. We never see them. I'm not convinced. I think this was his only friend. The old lady he played chess with and talked about weird mystical shit.
Oh, poor Rusty.
Poor Rusty and his one earring. Okay, so we're back at the house. Jacob's leg wound because, hey, Jacob is still a character in this film. I sometimes forget about him.
Oh, I honestly, he could have been dead. But then we would miss this like BDSM style like tying him to the bed scene.
Oh my God, Trace, you took the words out of my mouth. So we see a close up of his leg wound. It's still looking absolutely gnarly, but it is differently bandaged, like it's cleaner bandages, but only so that we can see the blood start to seep through because of course we've killed Iris, we've drawn blood in this movie. So we get to watch as that leaks through and it's very nasty. Andrea comes up to check on him and we just get this shot of what the room looks like because he has not left the bedroom. He is surrounded by dirty dishes and leftovers. It is a fucking pigsty.
Oh, he's gone full Grey Gardens.
Oh my God, yes, he has. We're going to have to burn all of these sheets and maybe pressure wash the room after he's quote unquote better. Okay, so he tries to strangle her because he is possessed and she has to bash him with the phone to get away. And this is when Leonard comes in. I do like that Leonard doesn't save her in this moment. She takes care of it herself.
Yeah. I mean, Andrea remains like out of damsel in distress mode, which I really appreciate because like even for this time period too, it's like a little surprising that she's as strong as she is.
Yeah. So the two of them decide they are going to tie Jacob up. And yeah, this is full S&M kink. Like, I don't know if this is something that Leonard had in the trunk of his car for play dates. Like, okay, we did Chinese night 1. We're going to do, 50 Shades of Grey night 2. But Like, we don't just tie the hands and the wrist to the bedpost, folks. This is complicated knots.
Like, this is some expertise material here from Lenny. Or Lenny and Andrea. I don't know if they both did it. It seems like they did.
I think they've been watching videos and practicing, if you know what I mean.
Either that or Lenny is a really good ex-Boy Scout.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
Anyway, so we're going to call and have an ambulance come because Jacob now needs to be admitted. Lenny has had it. So he leaves and we cut outside so that we can catch up with Lisa because she's just been out on her date with Andy wanting to get some. And we're going to play sexy Hansel and Gretel, Trace. So she gets out of the car and Andy is going to follow the trail of discarded clothes that she has left him so that we can lure him into the basement where we are waiting in bra and panties in the middle of the train set. And we just lure him a little bit closer after he disrobes down to his briefs.
I do appreciate, though, so, like, you know, what he says to her is, "You won't regret this, I swear," which to me is just really the one thing you want to hear when you're about to fuck someone is, "You won't regret this."
Guaranteed. If someone says that to you, you will regret it and do not do it.
But at least her reply is, in this like very sexy, sultry, possessed voice, "You might."
Oh, yeah. She's got his number for sure. So he takes a step closer and we're back to Black Tar. This is Tabitha. This is Stephen King and The Raft.
Yeah. Well, or The Blob.
Oh, or The Blob, yes. So we step into this, and then he just starts to sink and dissolve, and he says it burns. And the sequence only ends when he has been completely consumed, and he goes down the drain.
And we get this great, again, it's an overhead shot of his like partially dissolved face.
Yes.
About to go down the drain and his eyes moving around. I mean, it's truly, it does look like it's plucked right out of either Creepshow 2, The Raft, or The Blob. Like, if you had just shown this to me, I would have said, oh, it's from one of those movies.
Yeah. It's practical. It's fucking great. This whole sequence rocks.
Yes. At a certain point, I think once he gets waist deep, he's just like, "Help me, you bitch!"
Yep. Yep. And after he is gone and we are free and clear, she just goes, "First time. Not so bad after all."
I love a one-liner.
Yep.
Yeah. This is probably the set piece of the movie,
This is the
right?
set piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one that people remember.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're not done because, folks, we're actually into the climax. Everything is happening now. So
yeah,
let's follow Lenny into the bath. So he's just relaxing, I guess, because, hey, we've got Jacob en route to being committed. So let's take a bath in his house. Naturally, the water starts to turn into this black goopy tar shit. He's rubbing it all over himself. And then a hand comes up, very Nightmare on Elm Street-esque.
Yeah, the influences are clear, but I'm going to tell you, like, this tar stuff, it's chunky.
It is.
And when he is rubbing it on his face, it takes him just a little too long to realize.
Way too long, yeah. Sir, are you used to having viscous, chunky material slathered on your face?
So gross. So gross.
So he freaks out not so much about this, but more about the hand that pops out of the water. So he, flees this. We could have done some tasteful nudity here. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, look, we got the tighty-whitey bulge, man. I don't know what else you want.
I just said I want tasteful nudity. No, but he's cowering against the door because, of course, he can't get out. And then we see, oh no, it's just the water's overflowing. It's totally normal. It's clear and everything. And then there's this really good jump scare where all of a sudden he gets attacked by this figure. And I think it's supposed to be a partially dissolved Andy.
Oh, I think you're right, actually. I guess I was thinking it was the same thing.
Because he went down the drain and then he comes out the pipe, right?
Oh, that does make complete logical sense, actually. So I'm going to say, yes, you are right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a long scene. It's enough of a jump scare that Lenny gets scared a second time to the point that he is cowering when Andrea finds him, but she sees nothing. Everything looks normal.
Poor Andrea. She's the last one to figure all this shit out.
Truly, yeah. Okay, so Jacob wakes up and he is still completely bound, like face down in these ropes. It is sex times if this movie wasn't a horror film. He's growling like he has gone feral at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think he has.
I think so. He's clearly not Jacob anymore. Like, he cannot be trusted if you release him. So this is when Andrea discovers that all the model houses have turned into Amityville houses. There's a little figurine of Leonard hanging from a window, but if you don't remember exactly what Leonard is wearing, you just think it's a figure, so somebody is maybe going to end up hanged.
Well,
and we have
right now.
Yeah, but we also have little tiny tombstones for each of the family members, which I quite liked.
Well, because I refer to this as the Beetlejuice model in my notes the entire time, and but yeah. I, honestly, it's so silly. Like when we get the reveal of it's like all the houses are the Amityville house, I was like, oh,
I know, right? It's surprisingly effective. It's just fun. It's fun. It's very, very fun.
No, I mean, I was invested, and I truthfully, I don't think that was something I expected when I was like, oh yeah, I'm about to watch the 6th Amityville movie. You know?
I know. Yeah. Okay, so we rush back up to Jacob's room. The bed is now empty, and we're hearing a thumping sound. And you might be forgiven for confusing it with the ticking of the clock, which, as we said, is the kind of off-repeated soundtrack. But no, it's definitely feet hitting some kind of wall.
That's intentional, though. I love that we're kind of like blending those two sound effects almost, or at least trying to call back to the motif of the ticking clock.
Yeah, because we're keeping pace.
I guess also he's a pendulum. His hanging body's a pendulum.
Truly, yeah. So we open the window. There's Leonard. He is definitely dead. Oh shit. Okay, so things are escalating. Rusty ends up grabbing Andrea because we're the only two sane people left in the house. We are in a closet. And, okay, here's what we got to do. It's got to be the clock. We've got to take a stance against it. So let's arm ourselves. This is where Andrea grabs the ruler, the architect ruler from the wall in Jacob's office.
What that was?
Yeah.
Dude, Joe, I was writing like this gold axe artist thing.
I know, because it's a triangle compass thing, and you can see that there's a couple of them up on the wall in his office earlier, but it's also very easy to misremember. And by the way, Trace, did you clock that we had actually seen this before?
Well, because isn't it what she's holding whenever Jacob first shows up at the house with the clock?
It is.
Yeah. No, because I wrote we meet Andrea at the door. She's holding this gold axe-like architect thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun. Okay, so this is her weapon, and we're going to go downstairs. We're going to deal with the clock, but Rusty immediately abandons her because he hears Lisa crying out. So,
oh my God.
So we kind of split the action into two. We've got a police car showing up because Lenny called, and we've got our usual cops. But when they get to the door, the soundproofing is back. So Andrea's banging, and on the outside, they don't hear a thing.
So love this, but I also love that as the cops are walking to the door, they are still talking about how awful Rusty is.
Yeah. Never had so many calls in this neighborhood before. I should have stayed somewhere else.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I again, it's not even an effect. It's just we're using two different shots to convey that like there's a soundproofing on this door, but it's so good.
It's really good. Yeah. And then meanwhile, we've got Rusty going after Lisa. So he goes into his room where she is waiting, and we see that there are bloody handprints everywhere.
All over. Every surface of this room is covered in bloody handprints.
To the point where I actually thought that she had killed someone. Like, I thought we were going to see Andy's body in here just completely covered in blood or something. But no, we have no idea where all of this bloody handprints came from.
Well, the clock did it.
Sure, yeah, it's great spooky set dressing. But here we go, Trace. The proof that this is a great Amityville film. Incest.
Incest. Okay, like, Joe, the line, it's so horrible that you're my brother.
As we said, Lisa's not like a fully fleshed out character, and yet when she gets to go vamp in the back part of the film,
it's so fun.
She's having so much fun.
Like,
so she's sticking her tongue in his ear. He says something. I can't remember the line, but he says something along the lines of like, "Take it off" or something like that, and she's like, "Oh, what you mean, like this jacket?" That must be on my bra and panties. Oh no.
I'm not wearing any underwear.
He ends up punching her, I think, to try to, knock some sense into her or something like that. She licks her bloody lip and then says, "Ooh, are you going to spank me?"
Here's the thing, everyone. None of this is really played for laughs, but
but it kind of is.
Kind of. I think there's a self-awareness in this. Like, I think everyone involved knows this is kind of funny, but it's not played like a comedy, if that makes any sense.
So here's the thing. At some point, we could probably cover the second Amityville film, which is the prequel that deals with the DeFeo murders before the Lutzes move in. Mm-hmm. And that movie also has like brother-sister incest, but they fully get down to fucking in that movie. What? But it's not treated like it's flowers in the attic incest. It's not a fun campiness like this film.
Man, the 80s were a wild time.
Yeah. Also, that movie... good time. Like, it's kind of spooky, but it is, at that moment I was like, are we doing this right now?
We are doing it.
We're doing it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all going on with Rusty and Lisa. Jacob and his rotting leg are back. We're talking to Andrea about power and sacrifice and hell and purgatory. It's all very Hellraiser.
Blah, yeah.
He's throwing her around. She tries to kiss him back to normal. That's not working, so we're hitting him with the candlestick. He ends up pinning her by the neck with this drafting ruler. Yeah. And meanwhile, Rusty is combating his sister, and he ends up electrocuting her to death with his amp.
Okay.
This is one of those things where I was like, if this isn't hallucinations, or if we don't find a way to undo this somehow, because we don't actually know we're playing with time too much up to this point.
Oh, yeah, no. I thought this was real.
I thought she was dead. I thought she and Leonard were just dead.
It is real, I guess. I'm sorry. This is really happening, because I read the ending as we're just rewinding time.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we get full on, like...
He jams it in her mouth, and she just fries.
It's like full on Joan Cusack and Addams Family Values, like when she gets confused and like her hair like flies up. Like this is what we're doing with Lisa here, and it's just so silly.
It's wild. It's wild, and she's dead. So
she's
Lisa,
fully dead. Like,
out of this movie.
Kill Lisa in this movie.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrea's still fighting with Jacob. He's out of his mind. He's attacking her. Rusty tries to join in. We've not really talked about it, but the clock does have a certain amount of personality. It has different, almost like heads that spin. So there's a goblin head and there's some other things that we see. We often see the inner workings of it. As you said, there's the part that kind of looks like it should be attacking or sucking someone in.
Right.
But here, the clock arms are spinning backwards. So as Rusty tries to run into the living room,
he freezes.
He freezes and kind of restarts. But that's all we get of that for now, because we're still focusing on Andrea. She stabs Jacob in his infected leg with this compassy ruler thing, and it seems to take him out. Like, it seems to actually nearly fatally injure him.
But this is a very, like, a trope of this era that I fucking hate, because he's knocked out, and she goes over to poke him. And poke him. And poke him. And I'm like, bitch, run away.
Run away, tie him up, hit him again.
Yeah.
He's obviously not unconscious. He's kind of faking it. But, he doesn't try to play her too badly, but he does revert back to, oh, I'm not possessed. I'm a nice guy,
Yeah.
I'll be a gentleman. I promise. And so on. You're just like, nobody's buying this. Come on. So, let's get to some big, shocking, twisty reveals because, hey, remember when Rusty got caught in that time loop? He's a toddler now. So he's played by Dylan Milo. And it's just like this, maybe 3 or 4 year old walking around this room.
With a full-on mullet?
Yes. I didn't check to see, but he probably also has the earring as well.
Oh my God, he probably does.
So Andrea, now rightfully believing that the evil is real.
It's not too late.
Oh, it's pretty late, yeah. She asks the clock to let him leave, so we just see this toddler kind of waddle out of this living room.
Which I was like, all right. I mean, it seems like a reasonable clock.
Yeah. I don't want to kill kids. I want to kill teenagers. But...
Yeah.
All right, so the clock begins to chime, which we know is often when a bunch of bad shit is going to happen. So Andrea grabs her weapon, and it seems like she's trying to hit the clock, and she just misses. So she tears out a chunk of the wall, but then she doesn't try to go after the clock. She just tries to tear out more of the wall, in part because, again, Hellraiser Bloodline, the whole wall has been transformed into the gears of the clock.
Yeah, this is the house with the clock in its walls.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to, that other one that Eli Roth did, The House with a Clock in Its Walls.
Yes, exactly. Actually, wait, The House with the Clock in Its Walls is based on a book. Do you think it was written before this?
It was. It was written in like the 60s.
Oh my God. I was going to say they stole this from Amityville 1992.
Everybody steals everything from Amityville 1992.
But I guess they stole this if they read that book.
Yeah. I mean,
it looks cool.
It looks cool. I don't think it looks great. It looks a little bit lightweight, like it doesn't have quite enough substance.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm willing to forgive it because it looks cool.
I think just the mere concept of it is neat. I mean, look, like we don't get too many shots of it. Like it's just this little place above the fireplace that we're seeing this interior clock mechanics. But
yeah. It's just, it's such a fun idea, right? We saw the clock drill into the mantle, but this is what it has become. It really has taken over the entire house.
Yes. And I think there's another more expensive version of this movie where the house blows up and it just sends like gears and springs flying all over the neighborhood.
Right. We do often blow up the house in other films.
Oh, man. We just keep building that house again, I guess. Or I guess sending new haunted objects to it.
That, or it's evil, so it just remakes itself.
Right.
Sometimes it goes into space, other things like that. So. Yeah, okay. So essentially, Andrea is in a bad state because those ticking clock arms are also now speeding up time, and she is caught in the mix. So Andrea full on turns into an old lady.
Yep, I love it. And she's just like, ugh. But okay, so I guess she does blow the house up.
She does, yes, because it has actually opened the flue valve on the fireplace. So we are leaking gas. It is trying to poison her as she tries to destroy the wall. She becomes an old lady, manages to get a single spark, and yes, we blow up the whole house. We get to see the clock go spinning off into oblivion. It's all really good. But everybody died. Until
so
we fade to black, and all of a sudden Andrea wakes up. She's back to normal. She's still clutching her weapon, and she's awoken by the ringing of the doorbell. And when we open it, it's Jacob arriving back home from his New York trip. So yes, we have reset the clock back a couple of days to the inciting incident.
Now, this would normally bother me, and
sure.
I found myself not caring by this point. I was like,
no.
Maybe because it's well, I don't want to say this is not a substantial movie, because I actually do think for what it is quite a substantial film. But like,
I think it just feels earned. Normally, it feels like a cop-out when we do, it was all a dream, or none of it was real, or, we could just walk it all back. Here, it's like, no, this is Andrea learning this valuable life lesson. It's actually part of her arc. She destroys the clock immediately in slow-mo. She's crying. She just grabs her bag, says, it's about time, walks out the door, and the movie ends. And you think, okay, you know what? Yeah, this works.
Okay. She doesn't just say it's about, she does. Like, she trashes this clock. Jacob is like, what the hell was all that about? And the final line of this movie, it's about time. That's what.
As we said, it's about time.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's just so stupid and so good.
I cannot believe that is so I was wrong, because I said earlier, I think she says it's about time twice. No, so right before she starts hitting the wall behind the clock to find all the gears, she says it's time.
Right.
Which I'm just like, again, the concept of this woman talking to this clock is the funniest thing to me.
But the clock has a personality. It is evil. It is an entity. So
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, at least, well, in this one at least, we don't go into the whole, like, oh, it's like the entity is this demon or this serial killer from X years ago, blah, blah, blah.
Which,
Like,
P.S., both of those concepts are also explored in other films, and it's not great.
I have no doubt about it. That's the thing. I think that's, because, yeah, the logic isn't really a thing in this movie. So when we get to this ending where it's all a dream or rewinding or whatever the fuck, like...
Who cares?
The reason I never like these endings is because typically what happens with them is that it erases... the memory for all these characters. And it does, except it does seem like Andrea and Iris and maybe Rusty have an inkling of what happened, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It seems like the people who didn't get possessed retain the memories or killed. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah. So
that's time.
It's time.
It's time. Well, Joe, I mean, thank you. Oh my God, I'm so glad we programmed this because, I guess my question for you is this.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you last week if this is in your top 5 Amityville films. So
absolutely, yes.
I'm not going to ask you where it places, but I'm going to say, what are the other 4 Amityville films that people should watch if they ever want to dip their toes into this franchise?
Okay, well, how about before we do that, we'll play a little game.
Okay, yes, let's do it.
Because I have drummed up a list of real and also fake Amityville titles, and I want you to tell me which are real and which one are made up.
Oh my God.
Okay. You're not allowed to look, obviously. Some of them you may have seen when you were doing your research for this one. Maybe I'll pick one of the first 5.
I've definitely read a few of your Amityville articles, but I also have not read all of them, so we're gonna see.
Who among us has?
You.
Maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna read out a title, and you're gonna tell me if you think this is real or fake. Okay. Number 1. There are 10.
Okay.
Amityville: The Beginning.
Real.
It is fake.
Fuck! Okay.
There is one called Amityville: The Awakening. That is the Bella Thorne movie.
Oh, I have seen that one. I've seen that one.
Yeah, Daniel Farrands. Actually, he does a lot of true crime adaptation stuff, so it totally makes sense.
I am aware of what he makes.
Yes. Okay. Second film. Amityville: The Evil Escapes.
Okay, that's true. That's real.
That is true. Yes, that should have been one of the ones that you came across. That's also the title of one of the books.
Yes, that's the 4th one. Got it.
Okay. Number 3. Amityville: The Final Chapter.
Fuck. Fake.
That one is true.
God, what? What number is that?
Okay, so there's the last Amityville film, and then there's the final chapter. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, this one I think is within the first 10.
That's so funny because I thought it wasn't real because one of the books, I think it's the 3rd Jones book, is called The Amityville: The Final Chapter from 1985.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is one of the ones that takes the title from the book.
But not the plot. Got it.
No. Okay. Number 4. Amityville Vibrator.
My God. I want to say no, but now I'm like, I'm going to say yes. This is real.
Yes, it is true. It is a real Amityville. And I will say, this is one of the ones in my top 5.
When did it come out?
Many of them came out between 2018 and last year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I want to say that this one is, I think, in the early 2020s, maybe 2021.
It's modern, nevertheless.
It's modern. It is not safe for work. It is actually explicit sex. We're seeing full nudity, but this is one of the meta films. It's very self-aware. It's actually referencing other Amityville films, which I would say is one of the key elements for contemporary, more recent Amityville films. When they go meta, they often are better at what they're trying to do. Not always, but more often than not.
The concept has been driven into the ground, so might as well go meta with it.
Yeah, so this is a woman who goes and gets a secondhand vibrator from a garage sale, and then it is possessed.
I can hear every single person out there a secondhand vibrator.
Yeah. I can't remember if she washes it, but it was one of the things I was trying to pay attention to. Yeah, that one is actually surprisingly fun.
Okay.
Bearing in mind, all of these are being graded on the Amityville scale.
Sure.
None of them are great.
No one will come after you and say, Joe, you deceived me.
Right, yeah. Okay, Number 5, so this is the halfway point, Amityville Porn House.
Fake?
That is fake.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
There you go. Number 6, Amityville Karen.
Oh, this is true, right? This is real.
This is real, yes. It was, I want to say, one of the titles that was announced during the pandemic. And people were like, oh my God, of course.
But this is different from, like, the movie Karen that I think starred, like, oh God, was it Taryn Manning?
Yes, it is Taryn Manning, and it is different.
Oh my God. We were really all in those Karens around that time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, number 7, Amityville Gas Chamber.
I'm going to say no.
This is actually real, although this is one of those ones where you could quibble with it. You can watch this entire movie on YouTube. It's a parody Amityville film, so it's actually just a person reading for like 90 minutes. And he farts every like 30 seconds.
Okay. I was thinking we were doing like Amityville Holocaust stuff, so that's not as offensive as I was expecting.
Yeah, which is, purposeful. I think you're meant to think that, and it's actually making fun of just how stupid and bad Amityville films are. Here's the thing. It would have been an amusing short, but it's a full feature-length film, and there's no plot at all. So it's like, this is one of the ones I actually had to skip in my coverage, because I was like, there's just nothing to talk about here. I wouldn't even be able to get 100 words out.
You actually should have just posted one sentence about it and made that your article.
I do acknowledge that it exists. So. Okay, number 8, Amityville Dinosaur.
Fake?
It is fake. There is a Bigfoot one that came out last year, but no dinosaurs.
Is it just called Amityville Bigfoot?
It is called Amityville Bigfoot, yes.
Oh my God, I'm going to have to show Ari that.
That one has Eric Roberts in it.
Oh God, no!
I can tell you it's not a good one. It's quite bad.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Amityville Death Toilet.
True. Real.
It is true and real.
God. Yes! Yes! That sounds like Ginger Dead Man type shit.
Exactly. Although I will say this one is very, very bad. Just bad acting, bad effects, very little plot. But yeah, it is about a killer toilet.
Does someone get sucked into the toilet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But
from what I remember, they all start to blend together.
Yeah,
Shocking no one.
60 plus movies of anything, they're going to blend together.
Yeah. Okay. Number 10, Amityville Christmas Vacation.
Fake?
This is real.
Oh, is it a comedy?
It is a comedy. This is another meta one. This is another one I would probably put somewhere around my top 5, maybe just falling outside of it. It's very self-aware. It's quite funny. The guy made it on a bit of a whim, and then he ended up winning the one and only Mango Chainsaw Award for an Amityville film.
Oh.
So this is the winner of the Amityville Fangoria Chainsaw Award.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, but it's not in your top 5.
Here's the thing. This is going to sound a little funny. Sometimes the list shifts based on which ones I have watched, because I'm constantly watching new ones. And I would say that this one is... There's some other ones that I think are not trying to be like meta funny that are still doing some interesting things. Like one of the directors did an unofficial trilogy, but you wouldn't know it unless you were paying attention to who made them. But they all have like callbacks within the 3 of them. And I thought that was kind of neat and novel. They're not great movies, but it was interesting to spot the connections.
Yeah. Well, okay. So then gun to your head. What are your top 5 Amityville movies?
Okay, so it's probably this one, number 2, the New Generation or the Next Generation. That one has some really good practical effects in it. It's about like a co-op of painters and like other people living in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I don't know.
I know you're already running dry.
Yeah, I'm like... Here's the thing. I'd have to pull up the whole list and like tell you, but a lot of them have an interesting conceit. It's just that they're so cheaply made and so quickly made that even if there was a good idea, it doesn't sustain a feature length runtime, or like they can't execute the vision. And then there's a bunch of other ones. Like one of the ones I was going to ask you if you ended up tying on the list. You ended up getting most of them right, by the way.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Like there was one called Amityville Elevator. And it's literally just a guy in an elevator for 90 minutes.
Yeah, there's, oh my God, Amityville Scarecrow and Amityville Scarecrow 2.
There's a couple of ones that have puppets in them where like the movie is not good, but the antagonist is really good. Like Amityville Turkey Day, which is the sequel to Amityville Thanksgiving. It's a killer turkey and it's great. Like just the turkey.
The last Amityville movie, which I can guarantee you is not the last Amityville movie.
That one's pretty good because that one's very meta too.
Yeah. I mean, well, the title alone. Over 3/4 of these movies do not have Wikipedia pages. That is wild.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, oh boy. That is Amityville 1992. It's about time.
It's about time that we covered an Amityville on the pod, Trace.
It is. Well, we're going to have to squeeze in that second one at some point because you have me really curious about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, and it's a prequel, so you can pretend like it's the first one.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
Well, before we announce what we're covering next week, just some quick housekeeping. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Blue Sky and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, please join our Facebook Horror Queers group. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you will get 363.5 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on Hannibal Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2, Companion, Hard Eyes, The Monkey, and a brand new audio commentary on Pitch Black for its 25th anniversary.
Ooh.
Yes! But Joe, we're going back in time.
Yes, we are.
What are we talking about next week?
Well, Trace, we're actually going to cover the earliest film we have ever talked about on the podcast. So we have never gone earlier than 1920, but it seems like a good excuse/opportunity to celebrate the 105th anniversary of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Oh, man. The very first film I had to watch in film school for a class.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I watched A Trip to the Moon.
Oh, yeah. I read about A Trip to the Moon.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone, this is a silent film, but oh my God, it is gorgeous. And you can see where Tim Burton got a lot of his inspiration from.
Oh, you can see where so many people got their inspiration.
Very much so. But until next week, everyone, we can cross out Amityville 1992. It's about time.
It's about time.
It's about time. That's what.